Hello everyone, thanks for watching. We're still waiting for everyone to complete their registration for Merkabah Academy. Please check your emails for registration request. Still feel free to check out the progress. We're updating the site daily. Also, there's another chance to get Never Pay Again membership for one payment of $24.99. Hurry, once the sale ends the link will no longer work. Thanks for your support, and see you at the Academy.
Now, for hundreds of years, mankind has debated over the whole question of who or what is God? What is God exactly? And the more and more you look at it, the more you cut away all the bullshit, you can see that, God is just a man-made word. God is something that we call this thing that we think created everything. I prefer the term creator because creator has a little bit of mysteriousness to it because after all, we don't really know who or what God is. We know that something created all of this. Who or what that is or what force that is, we do not know. So the term creator seems more fit than God. And the whole thing is, when you start looking at everything that man has called God, we can see clearly that this God or these religious deities have not come forward and, have recognized themselves or have called themselves God or the names that we call them. We have not had a God come down and say, hey, I'm the guy, that you talk about in the religion. I'm the guy who you talk about in your books. Nobody has validated themselves as the God. Now, for hundreds of years, as I said, we have debated this fact. But when you go back to the ancient world, they were very clear on who or what God exactly is. And when you pay attention and you start looking, you can see that they worship the sun. And we all heard the stories about how bad it was, back during those times, during the beginning ages when, it was not, electricity and things of that nature. And when it got dark at night or, pitch black, that things came out and hunted people and killed people and stuff like that. So, of course, the sun, rising in the morning, being the risen savior, so to speak, you guys know about all this stuff, that, the sun was looked at as a savior, as something to be worshiped, as saving people's lives, which it actually does. So again, I like to use the term creator because creator is so, elusive because we just don't understand exactly what it is. We know that the sun has properties and the sun does things to keep us alive. So when we go and we look at, plants, we can see, as far as our vegetation and our plants, our food source, how the sun is very important in sustaining us. Now, we know that plants use the sun to get energy. They get energy from the light of the sun. And because they get this energy, they can take the carbon dioxide out of the air. They can take the glucose from out of water, which glucose is a sugar, and they store that sugar and save it for energy later. Now, because they can do this, they also, build up a lot of vitamin D, which vitamin D is a nutrient that, animals need and that we need as well. So, when you look at the plants, the trees, the animals and everything like that, how we all have this relationship, and it really starts with the sun. So you can see how, they could worship the sun, how the sun could be looked at as a God figure. I mean, when you look at plants and you see that, fruit and stuff like that growing off of it and that we can actually eat this stuff and it will sustain us and keep us alive, then you can see that, when you start tracing this stuff back to the power of the sun, you can see why the sun is worshipped. Now, also, we know about the sun and the water cycle. So you have the sun, which basically heats the surface of the water and, the water begins to evaporate and, it gets light and it floats up. As it gets higher and higher, towards the cool air that's in the sky, it becomes, starts to solidify, starts to turn back into like droplets. And what happens is at that level, condensation happens. And this is how clouds are formed. So eventually you have these droplets that, the whole process keep happening and the droplets build up and build up and build up and the cloud can't contain it, for much longer. So, this is how we get rain. So again, once again, you have the sun that is the cause of all this because the sun heats the surface of the water and causes the evaporation, then the condensation, then the rain. Again, without the sun, we won't be able to get this water. So again, when you go to the Bible, when you look at, God or Jesus turned water into wine. Well, without the sun, Jesus is the sun. Without the sun, causing it to rain, those grapes won't grow and, they won't be able to use them to create wine. So there you go. Water into wine. It's that simple. So now, of course, you guys understand all this already. So why did I go through this? Most people who read the Bible don't understand when the Bible is pointing out the fact that the God of the Bible is the Son. It's a lot of Bible verses that you can go through and see the Bible calling God the Son. So you guys understand these principles. You understand the power of the sun and little things like how the rain works and how, plants grow and everything like that. It's easy, simple stuff, but some people don't really understand this stuff. So when you take these properties and start looking into the Bible, you can see how they are basically copying off the effect the sun has on us and, the world, the planet, and giving that power to the God of the Bible. So when we look at Job 36 here, it's saying, remember that thou magnify his work, which men behold. Every man may see it. Man may behold it afar off. Behold, God is great, and we know him not. Neither can the number of his years be searched out, for he maketh small the drops of water. They pour down rain according to the vapor thereof, which the clouds do drop. 30 says, behold, he spreadeth his light upon it, and covereth the bottom of the sea. I'm going to skip to 32. With clouds he covereth the light, and commandeth it not to shine by the cloud that cometh betwixt. 37:18 says, hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as a molten looking glass? Teach us, we shall say unto him, for we cannot order his speech by reason of darkness. Now go back and read everything I just read and understand how this is talking about the sun. I mean, come on. It's so simple when you read the verses that it's talking about the sun. And I'm going to go over here to chapter 38, starting at 11. It says, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further. And here shalt thou pride waves be stayed. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place? Now, all you got to do is go back and look at these verses, reread them, understand it's talking about the sun, the spreading of the clouds and, making the dew drop and the rain fall and all of this. This is talking about the sun. Clearly, it's talking about the sun. Go read them for yourself. Now, when you go back and look at verse 38, chapter 38, verse 11 of Job, when it says, hitherto thou shalt come, but no further. Now, remember in the movie, The Da Vinci Code with Silas, that verse comes up in a part when he's following the rose line and he goes into the church and he breaks open the floor. What does he pull out? He pulls out that verse, Job 38:11. What is it written on? It's written on the sun. That is trying to tell you something. That is definitely put in there for a reason to get you to understand that Job, in these verses, 38, and you start reading before the verses I just read, it's metaphorically talking about the sun. It's clear as day. There's no way you can look at these verses and not get the depiction, the whole, the purpose of the sun, the things the sun do, the actions of the sun. It's talking about the sun and calling the God son. Now, when we go and read Joshua, and I went through this in the previous video, that last verse and this verse right here in Joshua, I talked about this. It says, then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, sun, S-U-N, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed until the people who had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jazer? So the sun stood still in the midst of the heaven and hastened not to go down about a whole day. Now, verse 14 is where it really, it puzzles you. You have to read it. And it says, and there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Now, when you pay attention to that, it just clearly called the sun the Lord. It doesn't get any more clear than that. It clearly called the sun the Lord. Now, if you take that verse to be true, and the Lord hasn't hearkened into the voice of a man before that or after that, then you have to completely discount everything that Moses went through, everything that Noah went through, because the Lord obviously hearkened to these men and men after that. Now, I understand it's going to be hard for some people to accept the fact that the Bible is talking about the sun because of ignorance. You have to really seriously think about it. First of all, when you look at what the sun does for the human race, I mean, without the sun, we cannot exist. It's just that simple. So people would rather accept the doctrine of a man and accept the fact that a man who nobody has ever proven has done anything for mankind. People will rather accept these falsities, this fairy tale, as Jesus or this God of the Bible being the actual true God, the savior of mankind, when the sun, when you can really understand how people would worship the sun, because without it, we are nothing. We don't exist. We can't eat. We can't breathe. Now, it's clear to anyone who is paying attention when you look at the church, when you start looking at religion, there is obvious sun and moon worship, clear as day. When you look at the Vatican, you can see it everywhere. You know, you see right there, he has the sun and the crescent moon at the bottom. We know in Islam, you have the crescent moon and the star. This is all sun worship. I don't even have to get into the whole zeitgeist thing. I know you guys seen it already in all the comparisons between Jesus and the sun. This stuff is not a joke. It's obviously clear there is a comparison. There is, somebody whoever put this stuff together copied the trace of the sun and gave it to Jesus Christ. It's just that simple. So, a couple people asked me about this stuff, and this is the reason why I'm putting out this video. And I want people to understand. I know this stuff is like basic for you guys, and you guys already know this stuff already. But there's a lot of older people who have no clue, what we talk about, who watch my videos. I know I have like a group of people in a couple old folks' homes who send me emails who talked about, just asking me simple questions like this, and they heard about Jesus being the Son. So I'm really doing this video for people who need to get this information on a basic level. So belief and faith does not determine, whether we're going to live or die. Plain and simple. You can believe in a book. You can believe in words. You can believe in whatever God that you want. Those beliefs, those religions, those faiths does not directly, affect our lives here. It has no real significance to us being alive on this planet. Now, the sun does. The existence of the sun does. The sun, in fact, as we know, is the reason why we can exist, the reason why life begins on this planet, the reason how life is created on this planet. We have to understand the true significance of the sun and the role that it plays on this planet and throughout, our solar system. It is very amazing when you begin to understand it. So we can go and look at it, on a plant life level. We understand photosynthesis. We understand how plants absorb the energy from the sun, and how, the chlorophyll in its leaves converts that energy into food for the plant, basically sugar. So you have basically chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. They absorb photons and basically transfer that energy to the photosynthetic reaction center at basically a wavelength of 500 to 600 nanometers. So we know that it's basically on the color spectrum of green. So that's how we get, green plants. We can get into a whole thing with Osiris and the sun and all that, but we're going to do that in this video. But we understand that, without photosynthesis, without this process, we won't have healthy plants. We won't have food. We won't have vegetation or what have you. So this process is significant, and it deals with the sun. So when you have this process, you have the chlorophyll molecules, they become excited and they basically eject electrons. I talked about this in the human energy video on YouTube. So, when you have an ejection of electrons, you have the surface is going to become, or the chlorophyll will basically become positively charged. So in order for it to now absorb photons again, it has to basically go back to normal. So it's going to need electrons to do that. So this is why you water plants, because that's where it's going to get its electrons from. So when you water plants, you basically have the H and the O separate. The hydrogen and the oxygen atoms separate. Now you have the oxygen atoms, when they come together, two oxygen atoms come together, they're going to basically give us, a oxygen molecule, and the plant will basically hold that and release it when it wants to. This is how we get our oxygen or what have you. But again, this process, it's the sun. It's life itself. We know that if this does not happen, we're not going to get our plants, our vegetables, our animals will not eat. They won't have, the food. So, it's a chain reaction of events beginning with the sun. So when the plants get its sun, we get our vegetables. The animals gets its food, we get our food, so on and so forth. This is a powerful, thing that happens in nature, and it's normal and it's significant to the life of everything on this planet. And we need it. You don't need a book. You don't need a belief or faith. This is not going to get you what you need to have existence on this planet. And this is what we have to think about. So when you go biblically into the book and you look at everything the book's talking about, it's not really giving you it's giving it to you, but in secret, as we know, it's not really giving you the true significance of the sun itself on human life, something that you cannot ignore. But when you understand the metaphor, we understand what it's talking about, which is Jesus. Now we understand the cycles that our sun takes place in. I mean, everything takes care of itself. We call it nature. It's intelligence to the whole thing when you understand. So even when we look at the watering of plants, we understand with the sun, you have the rain cycle with the sun making it so hot. You have water vapor, and the vapor creates condensation, which creates rain clouds eventually, and we get rain, which that rain will, of course, give the plants the electrons that they lose from the chlorophyll or what have you, having their explosion of electrons. They get their electrons back, and then you have the process, so on and so forth, of the plants having a sustained life because of water, us having a sustained life because of water, animals, or what have you, and it's a cycle that works. It's just an intelligence to the whole thing that you really have to understand. And it's amazing because it's all because of the sun. This is something that is important to understand when you begin to look at the reason why the ancients really revere the sun and why we see so much so-called sun worship in the ancient world, because this was huge. The crazy thing is they understood this. They understood all of this, even on a molecular level. How, of course, we do not know. But it's amazing that they knew it and that they wrote about it and, talked about it, and they understood the process and many other processes that the sun takes place in. So now we also understand about us as humans. We absorb the sun. We create vitamin D because of the sun. Vitamin D is needed for calcium. It helps develop strong bones. So the more exposure you have to the sun, the more vitamin D is created. This is why you see a lot of people with suntan, because if you let the sun be absorbed through your back, you get more creation of vitamin D because of that. So now, people, here's the big question you have to ask yourself. We look at the process and we understand, one, you have the sun that's given life to the plants. Because the plants have this life because of the sun, animals are able to basically eat, survive, live, or what have you. We know we get our energy from our food. We know we eat these plants. We have the same process to where we get energy from this food. If we don't eat, we will die. We will literally starve to death. If we don't drink, we will die. We will literally basically die of dehydration. This is something you got to look at. What's keeping us alive? The sun, right? So now, question is, if we are infinite beings, if we have a soul, an immortal soul with infinite energy, why is it that we cannot simply sustain ourselves with our own energy? Think about that. We need the sun. If we don't eat and absorb that sun's energy, we can't sustain this human form and we'll die. But we have this infinite energy that we know exists inside of us that we call a soul, that has unlimited energy that we should be able to tap into and heal ourselves with our own energy. Why is that not possible? Now, I've got this question before from a lot of smart people who figured it out. And, basically I hint on it in a few videos if you really understand what I'm saying. But what you got to understand, and to answer the questions, you have to understand that it's because we have to rely on the sun because of our symbiotic relationship to the material. We are indeed spiritual beings, but we have a symbiotic relationship with the material world. Plain and simple. We need each other to exist. So just like we can't exist without this energy from the sun, our human bodies can't exist without us. So you have that one, the
material us needs the spiritual us in order to exist. And we need what? The material in order to exist here. So if we want to exist in the physical world as spiritual beings, we need physical flesh. In order to sustain physical flesh, it needs energy to be animated. So if we want this body to be animated, we need this energy. Now, you also have to understand that, when you are eating and converting this energy into more energy, it's almost like the recharging of the energy that you have. You're recharging it because we don't have that direct contact to the sun, or at least we forget how to directly charge this energy. So we have almost like a, portable battery, basically within us, to where we can charge it for a certain amount of time and basically have energy, that we need. So if you have the right energy within you, then you can go ahead and use that energy to go ahead and keep you energized. So this goes to a lot of stuff, especially food. When you think about if you go out and you eat, junk food all the time, and that's the energy that you are now about to convert into energy for your physical self. So if you're constantly eating junk food and everything, you're going to gain weight, and you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to have, indigestion or heartburn or what have you, depending on the health that you are in, at the moment. But if you're not in good health, what's going to eventually happen? You're going to be converting bad energy, plain and simple. So you're going to wake up and you're not going to feel as refreshed as a person who ate a salad, all that, who ate light meat, who didn't, gorge on junk food or what have you. They're going to wake up with more cleaner energy. They're going to be more energized. You're going to wake up over time with bad energy. So this is negative energy you're absorbing into yourself, and there's a lot that go with that. So you have to look at that, understand that relationship of, good, clean energy versus bad energy, so on and so forth. But it's due to the symbiotic relationship that we have with the material as spiritual beings that we need each other to exist. So we don't have full access of our power, as I talk about, with the subconscious basically locking away, everything that we need to be, complete, one. So because of this, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, it's going to make a lot more sense, trust me. Because of this, we have this semi-relationship with the sun that's going to make a lot more sense as we go along. But it's because of this symbiotic relationship that we have with material that we need the sun to basically give us the energy to help us stay on the physical plane. And in turn, the material can survive, it can live, it can go on and complete its agenda. So there's an intelligence in all of this that you're going to begin to see as we go along. And it's amazing. So really, it's all part of the dualistic nature that makes up us. And it's one of the reasons why I say that material cannot be evil, because you have to understand the sun is God, plain and simple. It's God. If the sun is God, then it's capable of both good and evil, which we get from the sun, the creation of the material and the spiritual. It's dualistic in a sense, biblically, if you want to look at Satan as the material, as we talk about, God as the spiritual, as we talk about. But you have to understand, they can't both be evil. They can't both be good. There's a dualistic nature. So material is a must. We must master material. That's one of the purposes of us being here, to master material, to understand it, to not succumb to it, to not be ruled by it, but to master it, plain and simple, to basically have complete control over the material, which would be you. If you can't master yourself, your flesh, then you can't master nothing. The spiritual will not be accessible to you because you are bound by the material. So there is a yin yang, of course, a balance, as I talk about, that must be had. And people are not really talking about this because they don't really understand. But the significance of it goes back to the sun. And we got to understand how it plays a role in every facet of what we do and so many things. Plain and simple. It's the reason why the sun is revered. The sun is basically worshipped and deified, of course, because it exists in so many different facets of our day-to-day, of our life, of our existence, and it's going to be responsible for whether or not we transform, whether we basically open the third eye, become one, and have balance. The sun is a huge part in all of that when you really understand.